So trading the Cheltenham Festival.
Simon asks, you mentioned Cheltenham is just around the corner. It's my first time trading the festival. What should I expect?
So great question there from Simon. First time trading Cheltenham, what to expect. So I'll now breeze over what I think you should expect in the markets. A few hints on what I think that you should be sort of focusing on to make the most of it. And finally what you should avoid, because you know, half the battle a lot of the time is actually keeping hold of the money you've made, not just making profit within the markets. You know, it's being defensive too. So, what to expect? The main difference, which affects everything and affects many other things about Cheltenham, is volume. There's going to be a lot more volume passing through the markets. The prices will be more static, not just because there's more volume, but because of other factors like, you know, form and all that kind of stuff as well. There's more form, that, you know, they're higher tier horses running, but the amount of volume that passes through the markets changes everything, which also means you're better off changing your style a little bit. Maybe if you're a scalper, you might find it a little bit easier. If you're used to just taking bigger moves, you may find it a little bit trickier. Either way, you can actually scale up your stakes. You can use more without making, you know, additional risk, is what I'm trying to say. So it allows us to manage our risk that little bit better, which is why Cheltenham is an excitable sort of week throughout the year for traders, because you can make more money, or you can, you know, what I'm trying to say, and it's not just a case of make more money, but you can actually take more risk without losing as much, is what I'm trying to say, you know, the opportunity to get out. So the increased volume and turnover within the markets means things are going to be a bit different. If you're a smaller trader, you may find it a little bit frustrating at times, if you've got a smaller bank in particular, because you may find yourself waiting and playing the waiting game, which isn't all that fun. It is safer, and it makes it, you know, it makes it a safer proposition to make money, but it's not as much fun as people, you know, like to think it is. So you can expect there to be huge amounts of volume sat both unmatched in the markets, as well as, you know, churning over and passing through. Particularly as you come down to post time, that tends to increase. Particularly that the amount of money churning over does, not necessarily the amount of money sat about waiting in the markets, which is, you know, a little bit of a hint there as well. So how do you make the most of it? First thing I'd say is focus on Cheltenham. Focus on the Cheltenham races, because there will be filler cards in between for other race courses. The quality of the racing, the amount of turnover, the betting interest is not going to be the same. All the focus is on Cheltenham, and although they're still tradable, it's quite frankly not the same. It makes it hard from a mental point of view of switching from, right, I'm in Cheltenham mode, there's huge volume going through, I'm using larger stakes, and then you've got to flip back to kind of like, I don't know what cards are on in between at the moment, but like some rubbish race over in Ireland that nobody's interested in, not Dundalk, but you know, like Navan or something like that, where it's completely volatile, and you know, they're different ends of the spectrum. You can't sort of flip on, flip off, and go back and forth. Plus, also, if the build-up on the TV and the media coverage is all focusing on Cheltenham, and while that is happening, you're trading a race at Navan, or you know, or some poor quality Southwell or something like that, there's going to be no real genuine money passing through the markets there. So, or very little anyway. So it's going to make the trading opportunity there a little bit harder, and you're going to have to scale down. In my opinion, it's still worth trading, a lot of them, but the ones particularly just before Cheltenham, not really worth it. So the first thing I'd say, if you want to have a good Cheltenham, is just focus on the Cheltenham races. Obviously that reduces the amount of races to trade each day, but the added value to that is as well, the media coverage starts so much earlier that you can afford to spend more time trading in the Cheltenham markets, and you can start a lot earlier. You might not be getting bets matched straight away, but you can start positioning orders, thinking about what you're going to do, planning ahead. So I definitely advise planning ahead and doing all of that, just focusing on the Cheltenham card. Something else which I didn't do the first year or two round was keep sort of track of what's happening, like in terms of records. So if you can get screen recording software, by all means record your trades and record the markets, and you can go back and flick over them, because Cheltenham only happens once a year. When it comes around to next year, you'll probably want to go back and look at what you did last year and look at the markets last year before you get stuck into it, so you sort of prepare yourself. If you haven't got that, then it makes things a little bit trickier, and obviously it's also good to see how you've improved over the whole year as well. So keep some records, focus on the Cheltenham cards in particular, plan ahead, and then finally I'd say be patient, be really patient with Cheltenham trading, because like I said, there's the opportunity to limit your downside, and obviously that means there's a good chance of making more profit over the terms of the week, but it is going to be different and you will need to adapt. So with the unmatched money in the different queues and the different queue positioning, you may find at points there's like £5,000 or £10,000 in front of you in the queue. Now if you've got your little lonely £50 or £100 stake in there, that's fine, because you know there's more money going on top of you and stuff. Like as you come down to play, so it's like you've got more trading time, more time to scratch that order for no loss. But you may have to wait a little while for it to get to the bottom. If you've got a smaller bank, then it's a bit of a pain. Obviously, if you've got a bigger bank, you can scatter lots of different orders at different points and throughout the market. And then when the price moves back and forward to you, you can already be there, which is helpful with Cheltenham. But you know, if you haven't got that opportunity and you haven't got that benefit, then you're going to have to be a lot more patient. As soon as you stop being impatient, you'll find you lose money. So just be aware of that, be prepared with that, and that's another good reason to turn up fairly early in the markets before the race really gets going, like coverage wise. So what to expect, a couple of little pointers on what I think you should be doing to make the most of it, and then what to avoid. Now this is the bit that I consider most important, because as I'm always saying, and it's kind of like the bit that nobody seems to be interested in, it's not just about winning, it's about not losing, or keeping what you have won. So the races in between, like I said, they'll be weak and they'll be a bit sporadic anyway. And something that I hear people do every single year, and I've done it so many times in years gone by, is flick to the race. So you trade Cheltenham, you're using maybe like, I don't know, I might be using £500, £1,000, £2,000 stakes, whatever. And then I flick over to Southall and I start trading with 200s and trying to trade 500s as well, in a race where nobody's really interested in. And had it been a normal day in the week, last week or like in 2 weeks time, I wouldn't be using them kind of stakes to start off with at least, and then and then expect it to be the same while everyone else is still watching Cheltenham. It just makes no sense. And if you do that, you'll find it all very hard to get out of the position, because unlike Cheltenham, there isn't all that money to get out against when you go wrong. So you end up chasing your position away, and by the time you've got your stake out, you're like 5, 6, 7 ticks. We've all been there at one point or another, well away from your position, and you made a big old loss. And you can spend the whole day or the whole week even with Cheltenham doing really well on the Cheltenham races, and then burning it on all the rubbish races in between. So I'd just say, to be honest, particularly the one just before Cheltenham, avoid it. And the other ones, if you're going to play them, just calm right down with the stakes and try not to behave the same, because it is so hard not to do that. Excitement, it's too easy to get caught up in all the excitement of it all, which is pretty much like what I'm describing there as well. The pulse will get racing at points throughout the week, and it still will for me. As you start to use stakes that you're not as comfortable with normally, it's natural, just being human, to start feeling like that. If you get caught up in the excitement, whether it's good or bad, if you've had a monster result or a terrible loss, you don't want to go slipping away onto that bad sort of route mentally, and then ruining further races in the future, because obviously once the past has happened, the past has passed, you can't go back, and if you let it affect your future, then it just doesn't need to happen. That's what I'm trying to say. So try not to get overexcited and start doing all that, which ties in with the last thing I was going to say, was about overstaking. As the week goes by, you'll become more comfortable with trading Cheltenham races, and there being a lot more volume turning over, and you'll realise that, particularly in the last couple of minutes, you can actually put large stakes on either side of the book and get them both matched, and you're sort of walking away with 3-figure profits in races and stuff where normally you wouldn't have made anything near that. But don't get too excited with it, because if the market moves, and there's all this volume as well, when the price moves, it's not like the price moves and a few £100 follows with it. When the price generally moves a tick, it follows, and then £10,000 goes on top of it. And if you're not quick enough to close out a bad position, you have to take an extra loss, an extra tick's loss or two, depending on how aggressively it's moving. But when that volume moves, there's less chance of it going back, and you've really got to wait for it to tear through a lot of money if it's going to go back. Now, if you've made a bad decision, that's highly unlikely. We all know that. So don't overstake, which again, well, not done it for some time, but a couple of years ago I think I did it, and I ended up with a very large stake on a very short price, and I lost a couple of ticks, which wasn't the end of the world, but because I was overstaking on a lay side first at short price as well, I think I lost about, I don't know, it was like 120 quid or something in one race, and it was just like 2 ticks just because I was on that big a stake, and it didn't need to happen. It was just a case of overstaking. So take from my mistake there, and hopefully you won't do it too. I know that there'll be a few of you that do it, because with the excitement of Cheltenham, and you realise you can start making all this money like so quickly, because it happens within seconds as well. You've got to remember, you'll get sucked into that trap. But seriously, try not to let that happen. So there's a few things to avoid there, what to expect, and how I think you can make the most of it. Either way, it should be exciting. The coverage is always good, bit of an atmosphere. So yeah, have a good time trading Cheltenham.